Hello everybody, in today's video I'll be ranking every track that was scheduled to appear on the 2023 Formula 1 calendar. Tracks will be ranked based on a number of factors such as historical value, the amount of good on-track action it provides and the actual layout itself. These scores will be rated out of 10, with the best tracks achieving high scores and the worst achieving low ones. Despite the obvious critical nature of this video, I would like to point out that a track's level of quality for Formula 1 may not correlate with its compatibility as a racetrack in other series. To give an example, the Paul Ricard circuit, which I briefly covered in my last video about Leighton House, wasn't very F1 compatible when it returned to the calendar for 4 races between 2018 to 22. However, it has provided much better racing in other series such as GT and endurance racing, so these ratings relate only to the track's compatibility with Formula 1 and not elsewhere. Lastly, this ranking is entirely opinion based, and therefore some people may disagree with what I say. Please try to keep it respectful in the comments, or you can lambast me, I really don't care. If it gets more comments and therefore more chance of striking gold in the algorithm, I don't really care. Anyways, without further ado, let's kick off this video, ranking all of the 2023 Formula 1 tracks, including China, which was on the provisional calendar. Jesus Christ, where do I start with this one? Miami has literally zero historical value to Formula 1, having only hosted one race so far. In that one race, we saw no real on-track action, apart from an incident with Pierre Gasly and Lando Norris about halfway through. This incident is the only reason that this track doesn't get a 0 for entertaining races. Moving on to the track layout itself, it's not terrible, but it's no better than mediocre in my opinion. The S's in the first sector are okay, I guess, but the rest of the track is really just naff. Tilke tried to create overtaking chances with 2 heavy braking zones, but in true Tilke fashion, good racing on paper doesn't translate to good racing in real life. The tight mistake generator section before the second long back straight provides the circuit with, I guess, a unique feature, but it's not a desirable one as it didn't really execute its purpose well during the 2022 weekend. Overall, this is such a throwaway track, its spot on the calendar could easily be taken by a more deserving host such as the Nürburgring or a race in Africa that many fans crave. Miami is by far the worst race on the calendar at the moment, and it will need major improvements this year to justify taking up a spot on the F1 calendar post-2023. Maybe it's unfair to try and rank a track that we've never seen a race on before, but even so, the Vegas race falls down in many areas. The 2 season finales held at Caesars Palace in 1981 and 82 are the sole reason why Vegas doesn't score 0 for historical value. I chose the middle value for entertaining races because I think there will be some overtaking during the race, with a super long straight in the final sector. However, the rest of the track looks very uninspiring. Unlike Miami, it has 0 unique features that really stand out, and I think it will most likely be a mediocre race, although it may turn out to be decent, you never know. I do think it is unfair to judge any circuit before we see any racing on it. There are many circuits that were thought to be unequipped to host a Formula 1 race, but then they turned out to be good. This is purely a stopgap ranking until we actually see some racing around F1's newest street circuit. If I'm being truly honest here, Qatar, or more specifically Lusail, is only this low due to its historical precedent. Unlike the previous 2 tracks, I'm actually a fan of the circuit. It's like a faster, more sweeping version of Bahrain, and surprisingly produced decent racing when F1 went there in 2021. Late race tyre punctures due to problematic curbs highlight some issues of the circuit, but I think with the new regulations, racing could prove good and Lusail could overtake Sakhir, Jeddah and Abu Dhabi as the best race in the Middle East. With a 10-year deal in place, it's got all the tools to prove its worth in Formula 1 if they don't move to a Doha street circuit beyond 2023 as is rumoured. The worst European track on this ranking, Spain, or should I say Catalonia, is a decent circuit. It has every corner type, a couple of decently sized straights, and is a perfect track to find the strengths and weaknesses of different cars, which is why teams often use it for testing. The only issue is, F1 races aren't like testing. Spain regularly produces dull or mediocre races, with the last truly entertaining race from start to finish being Max's first win or Maldonado's surprise win in 2012. 2 good races in 11 seasons is a crap record, and this is why many fans have called for this race to be replaced by a better circuit, while, for me personally, I think we should bring back the European Grand Prix to replace it, alternating between less prominent circuits like Hockenheim, the Nürburgring, or others. I think it'll be a nice throwback since the last European Grand Prix was held in 2016 for the first race in Baku, but yeah, for me, Spain is like a lukewarm bath or a cold cup of tea. It's very tepid and boring, and you don't really look forward to it. Singapore was a tough race to rank for me. It has a lot of historical significance in Formula 1 history, being the first ever night race, and also being one of the last remaining modern street circuits that races in F1 to this day. It can provide an exciting race, but exciting doesn't always mean tons of side-to-side action. Usually, it's more of an endurance race, with drivers becoming error-prone towards the end. The first race in 2008 was the closest it got to a proper banger, but there have been several races since that helped it sustain its position on the calendar, while other circuits, like Valencia, fell into obscurity. The track itself is quite satisfying to drive over a lap, with a sizable 23 corners. There are many sections where one corner leads directly into another, which gives an on-the-edge feeling, especially through the section leading up to the Anderson Bridge. It's a shame they removed the Singapore sling, as this was a cool, unique section of the circuit, but the cars and drivers just couldn't handle it. I like Singapore, but not enough to place it higher on this list. Abu Dhabi is another circuit that is done dirty by falling down in one specific area. It has hosted quite a few season finales now, and only 5 of them were anything more than decent. Although the championships may have won before the last round in some seasons, in 2010, 2014, 2016 and 2021 it hosted a title decider. The 2010 race saw Alonso unable to overtake a midfield car despite being much faster. The 2016 race saw Lewis Hamilton unable to slow his teammate down enough to win himself the title. The 2021 race saw those roles reversed as Lewis was the one unable to do the overtaking, losing 10 seconds in 2 laps thanks to the Mexican Minister of Defense. There is a theme developing amongst these races. You can't overtake at Abu Dhabi. The 2021 revamp improved overtaking a little bit, but the changes haven't turned it into a track viable for a season-ending race. With no realistic chance of exciting changeable weather or genuinely exciting wheel-to-wheel racing, Abu Dhabi should give the honour of a final race to someone else because they just aren't good enough at it. Go back to Sao Paulo or Adelaide or something, to be honest. To be honest, Shanghai is one of those tracks that's in no man's land. Like, it's there, but at the same time, it's not. It's had a couple of notable moments. It was a track where Brittany Rosberg won his first race and where Lewis lost his first title. Max joined Seb in his spin routine in 2018, and in the same race, Danny Boy showed what he can do in a car that isn't a McLaren. Other than that, it's just a bit The layout is like if you bought Sepang off Wish, or maybe Alibaba would be more fitting, with clones of multiple corners from the Malaysian track appearing throughout. It's not objectively bad, but at the same time you never look forward to a Chinese race, not like you do with Japan, or like you used to do with Sepang. It definitely hasn't helped the circuit's reputation that we haven't raced there in 4 years, despite plans to race being made in 2 of them. I think this circuit is okay, but it's just that and nothing more. Now, I know many of you will be looking at your screens in disgust, thinking this is tantamount to sacrilege, putting a circuit with this much action and chaos this far down. Let me explain myself. Reason 1. If it wasn't for Lewis impregnating Max, and Max redesigning Turn 1, and Max redesigning the re-overtaking rules, and Lewis and Max and Toto and Christian all going off at each other, it wouldn't have any more historical significance than Miami. Reason 2. The track is too dangerous. Yes, it's satisfying to drive, and it's flowing, but go off at any one of the 27 million corners, and there's a series of events that could lead to serious injury. This is a perfect track for an F1 game, but when you have drivers' lives at stake, you can't be having walls 5mm away from a racing line while pushing the car at full pelt round a good portion of a lap. Yes, the first race was chaotic, and yes, the second race was good too, but Mick Schumacher's crash is a small insight into the potential danger of continuing running a race on a circuit that is about as fit for Formula 1 as the explosions just outside the track. I don't mind F1 racing in Saudi Arabia if it's for the money and they use it wisely, but don't let money blur your conscience. I'd even prefer the tragic Qiddiya circuit, as that would be a purpose-built circuit that doesn't have concrete barriers staring drivers in the face every 2.5 seconds. Anyway, rant over. Time for the next track. Zandvoort is only on the F1 calendar because of two things: Max and Orange Army. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get on to the rest. It has F1 history dating back to 1952 on the old layout, which is good, and it's retained a lot of the old school feel to it with gravel traps and grass everywhere. It has fast corners, a few slow ones too, and the banked ones, which I really like. Over one lap I'd put this track right near the top to drive, but unfortunately a race is contested over 72 laps and there isn't a good enough overtaking spot for the drivers. I think with slight alterations to improve overtaking, Zandvoort could shoot up in the rankings. It's got the history and it's got the interesting layout, it just needs to be tweaked to perfection. If the atmosphere fell into any one of these three categories, it would definitely go up the rankings, but yeah, Zandvoort is great and I like its uniqueness. I hope it stays on the calendar as long as the overtaking problem can be resolved, as it's really got its own flair that no other track really has, to be honest. Contrasting to Zandvoort clinging on to Max fans like leeches, Imola is clinging onto F1 because of everyone's favourite thing: history. I tend to defend historic circuits, but not this one. Imola, or San Marino as it was often called, used to be a fearsome, high-speed challenge. Now it's a medium-speed health and safety exercise. I'm not saying that the changes to the Tamburello and Villeneuve corners weren't absolutely necessary following Senna and Ratzenberger's deaths, but it completely killed the overtaking opportunities of the track. Even on the modern layout, with one chicane removed, the track still has 3 of them, counting for half of the track's total corners by themselves. This means that as soon as a driver gets up to a speed quick enough to overtake, they have to slot back in behind the car in front or risk going awkwardly side by side through narrow, fiddly sections which are designed to discourage racing. Imola used to be a legendary race, but we haven't seen any good racing on it since it returned to the calendar following its surprise inclusion due to COVID. Mexico is very similar to Zandvoort in a way. The vibes are truly immaculate. The fans live and breathe F1, along with lots of green, white and red smoke in the grandstands. The track is very interesting as well, as every single corner in the circuit seems to be connected with another corner, with triple corner complexes and an S's section making up the first 2 sectors. While the stadium section is shite for driving, it makes up for it with the podium celebrations. The long straight is quite cool, and I think if this circuit was at a normal altitude, it would provide good overtaking opportunities as a whole circuit. However, in its current guise, there's not much that can be done to improve this issue, as unfortunately we cannot transport this whole circuit by lorry, piece by piece, to sea level. So we may have to put up with dual races, but at least the vibes are goated. Staying on the North American continent, this is another circuit shagged by history. It might steal sections from other tracks, cough, Maggots and Beckett's, cough, Bahrain turn 910, cough, Turkey turn 8, but oh well, they combine well. It doesn't have a super long straight like Mexico, but it has more character and better racing. I really like the Qatar track. It has a very good standing amongst many F1 fans and it's by far the best of the US tracks. With rumours that F1 are going to slowly try and price Texas out of the super rich US race war, it's a shame that the American interest is being funneled into rubbish street circuits and wannabe street circuits instead of great tracks like Qatar. We need to protect F1 from itself before it loses a hidden gem in the Qatar circuit. While Qatar was hung out to dry by historical significance, the Hungaroring thrives off of it. Most fans wouldn't guess that it outdates classics like Suzuka in Formula 1, but it's held its ground for more than 35 years now. Designed to be like Monaco without the walls, the track is actually surprisingly satisfying to nail a lap around. It's just not that open to wheel-to-wheel racing in real life. The 2021 race proved just how good the circuit can be, and it sporadically throws up absolute bangers every 8 years or so. So I guess we have to wait until around 2029, when there will still be over 6 years left on the circuit's current F1 contract. It's mental, some of the deals the races are striking till past 2030. How can you plan that far ahead confidently? Anyway, moving on from Hungary, good track. Bahrain is one of the only Hermann Tilke designed F1 tracks that most fans can agree is good. It broke boundaries, becoming the first Middle Eastern race in 2004, and it has consistently produced a good stream of decent races. Ask a fan which Bahrain race is the best, and they'll probably say either 2014 or 2021, depending on whether they came from Drive to Survive or not. But other than that, it consistently delivers great results, especially after moving to nighttime like Singapore and Abu Dhabi before Jeddah and Lusail since. It's a solid, dependable race where you don't expect to be bored, but you also don't expect to be jumping up and down in your seat watching the race. It's a good race. Baku is an absolute thriller of a race to kick off the top 10. Fast straights, tight corners, castle sections and chaotic races. The only thing holding it back is its good old history. It's only ever held 6 races, 3 of which were certified bangers, the others decent. Baku always likes to throw up a race of attrition, drama or downright chaos, or maybe a mix of all three. Every street circuit that has joined F1 since Baku has tried to replicate its success as a fast, long street circuit, aka Jeddah and Vegas, and you can see why. 2017 was the racing form of nuclear pandemonium, literally shit flying everywhere, from the first lap till the last lap. 2018 saw Red Bull implode. 2021 saw Pirelli and Lewis both implode separately. Chaos. Literal chaos. But unlike Jeddah, it's safe. Note to future video making self. Don't make history weigh into every single decision you'll make, or you'll have a Melbourne track ranked higher than Baku. It's still a great circuit nonetheless, although it's lost some of its charm from not being the first race of the season anymore. It's thrown plenty of great races up, including 1996, 2002, 2007, 2010, 2017 and 2022, following its 3-year corona hiatus. I don't think it's as good as Adelaide, personally, but yeah, Melbourne is definitely up there, especially with the recent modifications. I hoped they'd actually have 4 DRS zones last year, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. Although it's clear that the organisers definitely want to improve the race with time, rather than stagnate. And I do think it's a solid race most years, but always seems to throw up something unexpected. Austria only has 10 corners, with only 7 braking zones, yet it makes up for that with quality over quantity. Cough, Jeddah. It's nowhere near as flowing as its predecessor, the Österreichring, but it is better suited to modern Formula 1 cars. Since it came back onto the calendar in 2014 after 11 years off, it's produced lots of good races and a few great moments. Massa's pole in 2014, Jensen's wet weather quali masterclass in 2016, Charles and Max's coming together in 2019, Lando's Scenario 7, and who could forget the Turn 4 antics with Lewis and Albon and George and Sergio respectively. I really hope lap times don't get any closer to 60 seconds in the coming years, but it is cool to see how the cars have got faster over the years and get ever closer to that 60-second mark in Austria. Also, Max's support at Austria is just as good as in the Netherlands, so there's always seas of orange everywhere on race day. Great atmosphere and great racing. This could be the most controversial pick of the list. Monaco is undoubtedly one of only 3 tracks that can have maximum rating for historical value. However, it has come under scrutiny in recent years due to a lack of overtaking on this enlarged go-kart circuit. While these criticisms are valid, the last 3 iterations of the race in 2022, 19 and 18 show that you can have entertaining, close racing without tons of side-by-side battles. Classics such as 1984, 88, 92, 96, 2001, 5, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 and 22 show why Monaco is still deserving to be on the F1 calendar. I think its only downfall is its overtaking issue, which is why both the entertaining races and the track layout ratings are comparatively low to its historical significance. But nonetheless, I think fans, especially the newer ones who don't understand the history and legacy of Monaco, should first of all watch all the older races that I just listed before, then make their decisions. F1 needs to adapt to Monaco, not the other way around. F1 cars have gained over 200 kilograms of weight in the last 30 years and grown largely in terms of size in the same time frame, and yet a circuit that was good with small cars is now criticised for not being open for big, heavy cars. It's a bit backwards in my opinion. This is why I think Monaco is the 7th best track on the calendar at the moment. The best North American race on the calendar, Canada is a fast street circuit with swooping twist, chicanes and a hairpin. It produced arguably the greatest race ever in 2011 and has been a staple of the calendar since Gilles Villeneuve won on home soil in 1978. The Wall of Champions has claimed many great drivers like Pastor Maldonado, Kamui Kobayashi and Jacques Villeneuve over the years, and had much controversy in races like 2019 where some believe Seb was robbed of the win. Other good races include 1991, where Mansell gifted Piquet the last win of his career after Nigel stalled his engine, or in 2007, where Lewis took his first win, eventually going on to form a very special relationship with fellow Canadian Grand Prix winner Piquet. Lastly, the 2010 race is little known for being the reason why tyres don't last a full race distance nowadays, after stifling weather meant the rubber degraded much quicker than usual during the race, forcing teams to pit 2, 3 or even 4 times when they were only used to doing boring one-stoppers every single weekend. Canada is a cult classic, and I think its fairly unique, half street circuit, half normal circuit vibe makes it such a good fit for Formula 1. As we move into the top 5, Suzuka is an absolute classic, having hosted many great title deciders. It saw Prost and Senna collide in both 1989 and 90, deciding both of those years' titles. Damon Hill pulled off arguably his greatest drive in the wet here in 1994, beating Schumacher, a Rainmeister himself, by over 20 seconds. 1996 saw Hill wrap up his first and only title here, as well as Schumacher wrapping up his first Ferrari title in 2000. Kimi's legendary drive from 17th to 1st in 2005 showed how good both he and the track were combined. 2012 saw a flashpoint in that year's drivers' title race, with Alonso DNFing on the first lap while Vettel won, crushing Alonso's big championship lead. Although Jules Bianchi unfortunately passed away due to a crash here in 2014, the introduction of both a virtual safety car and Halo have saved countless lives since. The race in 2017 saw Vettel lose any chance of winning that year's driver's title, and the most recent race in 2022 saw Max Verstappen clinch his second title after the main race turned into a sprint race. The track layout is amazing to drive over a lap. Fast corners combined with slow hairpins and chicanes combined to make a driving challenge only beaten by the very best tracks. Suzuka is nonetheless a phenomenal circuit. The only reason it didn't get a 10 for its track layout was because it's not very good for overtaking. Maybe if they made 130R actually 130 degrees again and tightened it up, we could use DRS down the long back straight. Just a thought of the FIA, make it good for overtaking. Brazil, or as it is known as now, Sao Paulo, isn't the best circuit of all time layout-wise. It's quite nice to drive, but it's also quite short and a bit uninspiring. Its redeeming factors are most definitely its history and its tendency to throw up absolutely amazing races, especially when wet weather is involved. It has hosted 5 season finales, with 2007, 2008 and 2012 hosting races for the ages. 2007 saw Kimi Räikkönen finally get some luck in a title fight, and he won after a season of McLaren stumbling over each other. 2008 saw Hamilton clinch the title at the final corner of the final lap, winning by just 1 point after a dramatic race. Best of all, 2012 saw Seb drop all the way to 24th, handing the championship lead back to Alonso mid-race. He shot his way back up through the field and quickly got back into the top 10, eventually getting 6th after Michael Schumacher symbolically let him through late on to signal him passing the baton for German champions to his young adversary. Elsewhere, Nico Hülkenberg was having the race of his life, battling Jenson Button and later Lewis Hamilton for the lead before crashing out of contention on lap 55, taking Lewis with him. Jenson went on to win the final race of his career, while Fernando lost the title by just 3 points. Fernando had dragged an uncompetitive car up the order to finish just off a title, while his teammate got only 2 podiums that season. This is the biggest example of drivers outperforming their means in recent F1 history. Since 2012, we saw Verstappen come of age in the wet in 2016, driving an inspired race, overtaking champions and race winners alike to achieve an incredible result after a late pit stop. 2019 saw a flashpoint in the rivalry of Charles and Seb at Ferrari, with fans getting flashbacks to Turkey 2010 in the process. 2021 saw Lewis Hamilton rocket through the field after starting 20th and last. He may have had a very quick car in a straight line, however this takes nothing away from his ability to progress through the field on the Interlagos track. Sao Paulo is a certified classic and only just missed out on the top 3 spots. Its remained presence in F1 is adored by all. Silverstone is the F1 circuit with the biggest historical significance. It hosted F1's first race on the 30th of May 1950, and it was a scene of many a great race. Jose Froilan Gonzalez won Ferrari's first race here in 1951, and many other classics such as the super wet 1975 race which saw most drivers slide off into the catch fencing at the same corner. 1979 saw Williams take their first victory, courtesy of Clay Regazzoni, while 1987 saw a great battle between Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell, with the latter then winning in 1992, causing the crowd to spill onto the circuit in pandemonium. 1994 saw Michael Schumacher disqualified and banned for 2 further races for ignoring black flags, and in 1995 Johnny Herbert claimed an unexpected home win. 2003 saw a crazy race where lunatics ran onto the track mid-race, whereas 2008 saw Lewis Hamilton show off his mastery of wet weather conditions by winning by 68 seconds, the biggest winning margin for 30 years. 2012 saw Mark Webber take his final win, whereas 2013 saw multiple tyre failures which forced Pirelli to change the tyre compounds so they were more robust. 2015 saw 2 Williams surprisingly lead earlier on, and a chaotic race saw Will Stevens get the best result of his career with 13th place. 2018 saw Max and Seb try to make babies at Club Corner, whereas in the 2020 race, Lewis found out what it was like to drive a 2012 HRT on the final lap of the race. See, he hasn't always had the fastest car. 2021 saw a boring race that had zero effect on the championship as a whole, as Lewis skillfully won the race while his rival Verstappen retired from a first lap collision. 2022 saw the new aero regs really come into play with crazy battles for the lead, along with many calling for more crash structure safety after Zhou Guanyu's scary crash on lap 1. Silverstone used to be the second quickest circuit on the calendar in terms of average speed. Now it has fallen down the ranks due to safety issues, but it is still a marvel, and everyone looks forward to exciting racing at the circuit because that's what we almost always get. It's a spiritual home of Formula 1 and a certified legendary circuit. Monza is the fastest circuit in F1 history, even with 3 chicanes added to stop boring slipstream fests during the early 70s. So take that, Jeddah. Home of the Tifosi and Ferrari, Monza has etched itself into Formula 1 history. Overtaking isn't great nowadays due to the ineffectiveness of DRS at high-speed circuits, but we've had many surprises in the last few years. Pierre Gasly and Daniel Ricciardo winning at unfavoured machinery shows how unpredictable Monza can be, along with it throwing up feel-good stories such as Charles Leclerc's win in 2019 following the death of his close friend Antoine Hubert. 2017 threw up a wet qualifying where Lance Stroll proved his worth to qualify on the front row. 2012 saw Sergio Perez pull off a tyre whisperer masterclass to finish second, and 2008 saw Seb's timeless victory in wet conditions in his Toro Rosso. 1999 saw Mika Hakkinen crash out of the lead, striking a blow to his title hopes, whereas 1995 saw David Coulthard crash on the formation lap before Johnny Herbert took another surprise win following trouble for the cars in front. McLaren's perfect winning record in 1988 was broken due to Senna being taken out late on by the Williams of John Louis Schlesser, who was deputising for Nigel Mansell. It was actually the crazy slipstream battles of 1971 that saw them add chicanes to Monza for the first time the year after. Phil Hill's sole championship was decided here in 1961 following the death of his title rival Wolfgang von Trips and 15 spectators. Monza overall is a magical circuit that always conjures up close and fun racing, full of history, speed and legendary names. It is almost the best circuit in F1 history. The fact that there were rumours last year that Spa would be kicked off the calendar post-2022 to make the way for Kyle Army or some other venue shows everything wrong with modern Formula 1. It has an almost impeccable history, having only taken one big break from F1 action during the 70s and early 80s as they built a new circuit that was better for safety. Its so-called weakness for providing good racing comes directly from the fact that recency bias has done it very dirty. The 2022 race saw no real action past the first lap, whereas the 2021 race saw no action whatsoever because the FIA were too scared to race in the wet. Had this ranking been made in 2019, Spa would have made a much better rating for entertainment, as that saw Charles take his first win despite one of his best friends dying just a day before the race. 2015 saw Romain Grosjean get third after a fine drive, with his Lotus being gifted the Mercedes engine's party mode to catch up with Sebastian Vettel, who then got a puncture. 2014 saw tensions boil over in Mercedes as Hamilton and Rosberg collided, sending Hamilton out of a race. 2012 saw Grosjean attempt to fly at La Source, taking out many drivers, including 2 title contenders in Alonso and Hamilton. 2010 saw a chaotic wet start, whereas 2009 saw Fisichella nearly take a surprise win for Force India after qualifying on pole position. 2008 saw Lewis lose a win thanks to a 25-second time penalty for re-overtaking Massa for the lead at La Source after corner-cutting the bus stop. 2004 saw Kimi Raikkonen take a great win in his uncompetitive McLaren, whereas 1998 threw up possibly the most chaotic race ever, which saw a 13-car pile-up on lap 1, with Damon Hill taking the final win of his career, getting Jordan their first win in the process. Michael Schumacher took his first victory in Spa in 1992 after performing exceptionally on his F1 debut there the year before. Dipping into more historic moments, Jim Clark won the 1963 race by near on 5 minutes in absolutely torrential rain that saw lap times increase by 2 minutes during the race due to the increased rain. Eugenio Castellotti's pole position in the 1955 race was one of the greatest driving displays in that era of Formula One, shocking absolutely everyone and upsetting the establishment of the Mercedes dominance that season. Spa is the best all-round circuit on the modern calendar. It has everything: long straights, technical sections, high-speed corners, heavy braking zones, the lot. It's the longest circuit on the calendar and the best, in my opinion. That's the end of this video, everyone. I got there in the end. So, Miami is the worst track and Spa is the best. What do you think of my rankings? Which tracks would you rank higher and which ones would you rank lower? This is very opinion-based, so I'd like to hear what you think. So leave your comments down in the comments below and let me know just how wrong I am. That's all for today, and I'll see you all later. Bye.